this video, we're going to continue talking about the slope of a line, and we are going to find the slope without a graph. In the previous video, lesson 15, you learned how to count the rights over run from a graph and determine the slope based on the graph. And in this lesson, we're going to find the slope when you don't have a graph. What if we have points instead of a graph? Let's look at this first set of ordered pairs. Now, the concept of slope lies on two very important things. The first one is the change in y values, and the next is the change in x values. Rise over run. So when we have 2 points, we have to determine what that difference is between y and x values. How would you go about doing that? The first thing that we need to do when we have a set of ordered pairs is we need to determine what my x values are and what my y values are. So I labeled my ordered pairs xy and x2 and y2 to indicate that this ordered pair comes from the second set of values. Otherwise, I would get confused since I have 2 x values and 2 y values. Now, the difference in values is going to come from calculating the difference between these. Now, what you have to keep in mind when you do this calculation is that the first point on the line is always going to be your first point, and the next point on the line is always going to be assigned as the second point. So when you do your calculations, we are going to take the y value for the second point and subtract the y value from the first point from it. Divide that by the difference in the x values. And so we're going to grab the y value for the second point, which is a 3, and then we're going to grab the y value for the first point, which is a 0, and we're going to do the same for the x values. And now we can go ahead and do the calculation. 3 minus 0 is 3. And what you will notice here is that you have a double negative situation. And when you have negative times a negative, you're always going to have a positive. So 5 plus 1 is going to give you a 6. When you reduce it, you have a slope of 1/2. And we're going to use the variable m to show slope. If you wanted to check your work here, all you would have to do is graph these 2 points in a coordinate plane. That's our first point. This is our second point. And so go from here to here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go ahead and look at our next order pair. We have my y values. This would be y2, and this would be y1. And then we also have our x values. This would be x2, and this would be x1. We have a double negative situation here, so this will become -4 plus 6. 3 minus half is 2.5 over -4 plus 2. I want to go ahead and reduce this because you don't see mixed fractions in the slope. You can go ahead and reduce it. You know, if you have a decimal, you could have 2.5 over 2. You could have 5/2 over 2, which becomes increasingly complicated. But you can also realize that 2.5 divided by 2 is going to be the same as 1 1/4, or if you were to change that into a fraction, it is 5/4. So that is going to be my slope. Let's go ahead and move on to our next problem. We have our y values, 10 and 30. Then we have our x values. I'm going to plug in my x values. We have a double negative situation here, so that is going to be 10 plus 10. This is going to be a -20 over 20, which gives me a -1 over 1.